do it, not many people would take you seriously. And at least with the approach here, with it being a subtweet and trying to put a specific artist on blast for their prices, it doesn't exactly paint a good picture and make me want to side with you, like, at all. The tweet itself features 3 different images, the first one showing an example of a $300 headshot, which I know what you're thinking, $300 for a headshot? That is a little expensive. I personally have never paid $300 for a headshot. However, that is what an artist is deeming is their worth for their work at the end of the day. And if they're able to get sales and commissions based on that price point, all the power to them. In fact, I have nothing but respect for artists that are able to pull it off. Get that bag. I mean, I know it's not as simple as getting that bag, and we'll talk about why that is, but get that bag. If you can charge $300 for a headshot, that is insanely impressive. You have to have, like, the most godly reputation out there. You got to have a massive following, a lot of people that really want to commission you, very high demand for your work specifically. Think about it this way. If that artist charged about a tenth of what their price point is for an icon, being like $30, I could only imagine how quickly all slots would fill up and how much money they would potentially be missing out on compared to what they would charge for it now and what they could make from a reasonable commission queue. Now, for those curious, the artist that the OP ended up subtweeting goes by Ramahuro. I don't personally know the artist. I only just recently learned of them because of this original tweet. So, hey, you know, you advertised for them at the end of the day, good on you. But from a very, very brief glimpse at their profile, I see that they have over 50,000 followers and that their account has been active since 2018, which tells me 2 things about the context of this artist. 1, they've been doing this for a good 6 to 7 years now. So they have that experience as a default as an artist. And 2, based on the follower count, they're pretty well known and pretty popular. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see that they have some character auctions available. This one being a very handsome dinosaur. I can see why the demand is high for this art. With starting bids and auto bids in the $300 to $500 range, you can see the tweet is actually getting some good traction. It's got a good amount of retweets, over 1,000 likes easily, and based on one of the replies, or at least deleted replies, it appears that someone is interested in getting this character. So just from a little bit of research on this example used of over expensive art prices, this artist is very well known and popular, so there's a high demand for their artwork, and so they price the artwork at what they do, and people are still willing to pay for it. Pretty simple and straightforward. However, the OP here does not agree with that. They followed up with a reply saying, artists can charge what they want. Yeah, sure. But I can point out when their prices are ridiculous, lol. Rama's reasons are known. I think those reasons don't hold water. 500 to 1,000 for a ref sheet is absurd when I could get similar or better quality for way less. And you know what? They're not wrong about that. They could go anywhere else to get probably a cheaper commission. They don't have to spend $300 or $500 for a ref sheet. They could just go elsewhere. But the problem about this narrative about prices being expensive is that it's always this argument that you could go elsewhere to get cheaper. All right then, if you can find a cheaper and easier solution, why are you still complaining? If you can find artists right this moment that can charge less and you can get more from it, why are you complaining about this one specific artist? And that's what I don't get about arguments or even tweets like this. What are you looking to achieve at the end of the day? Are you just looking to complain about prices? Because if you are, congrats, you've created an echo chamber for others to also share in that sentiment who might also feel entitled to artwork at a lower price. Now, the follow-up quote retweet that actually ended up putting this whole argument on my radar and is why I'm talking about this today is probably the worst hot take I have read about art prices ever. Unpopular opinion, but I want to say this after I got a quote for a palm-sized tattoo for around $500. We need to start policing artist prices. They're getting genuinely way too carried away with how much they think their work is worth. Okay, so right off the bat, $500 for a palm-sized tattoo is pretty normal. That is around the average for what you would pay for that size tattoo. You can literally look it up because you're paying for not just, you know, art on your skin, but you're paying for like the quality of it. You're paying for the effort into it. And especially if you are as insufferable of a client as you are someone who's tweeting this, then yeah, I'm probably going to want to charge you more for an inconvenience fee of having to work with you. Now, for the second part of this, policing artists' prices. What does that mean? What do you mean by we need to police artists' prices? What, like DM them and tell them, you're doing a bad. You're charging $300 for an icon, shame. And that's the main thing right now. Whenever I see folks argue about stuff like this, I can only imagine how insufferable of a client they would be to work with on art to begin with. Like if I saw this person making tweets about like artist prices being expensive, all the usual stuff we hear about, and then they go to commission me, I don't want to work with them. That just seems like more of a complication on my end, an inconvenience. So yeah, it doesn't paint a good picture, but it also, doesn't do you any favors by complaining about it. And I will even say it, I used to be someone that would complain about artist prices. And you know what's the funny part about it? I was 17 at the time. Pretty funny, fits the shoe, ironic as fuck. But I remember at some point, there was an artist who I wanted to commission who ended up charging like $200 for like a full body art piece. And I think this was back in like 2016, 2015 or so. And I made some post about it being like, this is ludicrous, and pretty much doing the same thing that the OP is here with making a subtweet about an artist. And my friends and followers at the time were in agreement. They're like, oh, that's way too expensive. They shouldn't be charging this much, and then going on and on about it. Literally like 5 minutes after I made that post, I felt so bad about it because I realized, okay, this artist is probably charging what they do for a reason. They're getting probably clients who are able to afford it and are willing to pay that much for their work. And it's in bad taste for me to put them on blast and use them as an example and try to bring them down. I might have criticisms and opinions about their price point, but how I'm going about doing it is not in a constructive manner, which is the big thing that I've seen going around about this exact topic, is that the argument about artist prices is criticism, and that artists fighting back towards those who think their art prices are expensive is supposedly a case where artists are bad at taking criticism. And that's where I would like to disagree with that, because every single time I have seen art prices being critiqued, it has never been in a constructive manner, and it has never been without any sense of entitlement. With the original tweet having the argument of criticizing an artist's prices, you can do that, but the way you do it, the tone you do it, the demeanor, and the approach at the end of the day determines if it's done in a toxic or destructive way compared to a constructive way. The other thing to take into account too is even giving criticism. There is no guarantee that that artist or that person you're giving criticism to is going to take it. They can very much not follow it, and that is okay to do. Does it mean that they're bad at taking criticism? No! The thing about criticism when it comes to art prices is I feel like when it comes to speaking it or expressing it, there's no easy way to do it. You want to know the best way to actually give constructive feedback to an artist on their prices? You don't commission them if it's too high. Put your money where your mouth is to some extent. I don't know if that's the saying that applies here, but if you really want to give constructive feedback to an artist on their prices, don't commission that artist. Let whoever's buying their art be the determining factor on the worth of the art. Because, as much as the worth of the art is deterministic of whoever's selling it, it's also determined by who buys it. Like say, for example, I open commissions for $300 Stickman figures. You might say that's ludicrous to charge for that amount. I might agree as well. But at the end of the day, I may get all the commissions in the world. I might have that queue filled up within minutes. I might not get any commissions at all. And so you know what I'd do as an artist who might really want to sell Stickman figures? I'd start lowering the price if I get no sales. If I want to fill my commission queue, I might lower it to $200, $100, $50. And then I get to a comfortable point where I'm able to find people who are willing to pay for what I'm willing to offer. It all comes down to supply and demand. The supply being an artist commission for whatever price point that it's at, and the demand being how many people or who specifically is willing to pay for art of that value. As the value goes up, the demand for it might go down. That's not necessarily the case with every artist, and every artist has different standards for that, but a lot of times from what I see, artists undercharge for the sake of filling their commission queue. Some other arguments that I've seen too are people saying, oh, I used to pay like $25 for a full body back in like 2014. Nowadays, it's like $100, $200 just for a full body, which yes, you're right, it was $25 back in 2014. I remember my first ever commission that I got in like 2015, 2016 was of this detailed pen sketch of my character. I paid $8 for that. Nowadays, I would feel bad not paying $50 at least. Art used to be so much cheaper back in the day. You're right, it used to be. But 2014 was 10 years ago. It is 2025, the year of our Lord, where inflation has gotten worse, and not the inflation that I like, sadly. Not like the Death Wolf life jacket kind that I really like. The cost of living has gone up, things are more expensive, and you also got to take into account if artists were doing things back in 2014 for $25, there's no way that with the experience that they've built up in a decade for art, that they'd be charging that much still 10 years later, which naturally artists want to charge more for more experience, for more that they're able to refine their work, get better art styles, make it easier on themselves to draw, which sometimes it's not easier to draw, sometimes it's just much better to be able to do fully detailed pieces, or their art style gets better. It's not to say that you can't have the belief that art prices for a specific artist can be expensive. I might not want to pay $300 for an icon, or $500 to $1,000 for a ref sheet. I might think that is out of my budget, that is expensive for me. It might not be expensive for others who are willing to pay that amount for that art, because you got to keep in mind you're not just getting any specific artwork for $500, you're getting artwork from that person, from that artist who has had that many years of experience, who has that reputation, who has the following tied to their name, which is a big thing that's not really talked about often, especially within the realm of art. If you're commissioning a very renowned artist who is popular, who a lot of people would love to get art from, you're also paying for the name of the art that you're getting. Especially if the artist is going to advertise or post that artwork on their social media, you're kind of to some extent paying for that advertisement because people are going to see that specific art piece that you commissioned. I know that's not really a deterministic factor at the end of the day, but realistically, artists are able to charge whatever they want. At the end of the day, these original tweets and quote retweets with the narrative that art is expensive, these artists need to lower their prices, it just screams entitlement. You got to remember at the end of the day, art is a luxury. You don't need it to survive. You commission artists because you have the money to do so and you want to bring your character to life. You don't need that in order to survive. As much as I might say I need and crave Deathwolf in a life jacket furry art, I don't need it to survive. At the end of the day, you can determine whatever value art is. You can think that all the badges in the back hung up on my corkboard are worth like $100 in total. You could think that they're worth so much more, and that's it. It is up to you to determine that at the end of the day. There's a graceful way of expressing it, and there is a destructive way of expressing it. And I feel like in the examples that we've gone over today, they've been pretty much as destructive as can be. You're not entitled to business with an artist, and same thing with an artist. An artist is not entitled to your business either. These are all very easy solutions for a problem that is so oddly talked about like every year. Speak with your business. That's really the best way to do it at the end of the day. That's the non-confrontational manner. But either way, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today with this. So on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let me know in the comments. I greatly appreciate all the feedback and support on this. You guys have been so lovely. When it comes to random discussions like this, you all seem to love it and have a lot to say about it. And I hope you guys have a lot of good things to say about this one. And I especially want to do a follow-up to this, kind of getting a perspective on the artist side of things, because a lot of what I said about running a business as an artist, I feel like comes down to a lot of my personal experiences with running my own business as a YouTuber, and I know that can very much differentiate from artist to artist, even as artists too. So hey, if you want to talk to me about your experiences with being a freelance full-time artist, be sure to let me know. Either way, that's about going to do it for me. Have a wonderful night, take care, life stay jacket, treat people like people, and that's about it. See you later, guys.